Y'all planning for this?
Here's a little known secret about running an A-level practice. I mean, a really, really fierce and intentional and efficient financial advisory practice that most people are too polite to talk about. And that is A-team players want to be around other A-team players. One more time for the people that don't believe it's true. A-team players want to be around other A-team players. If you are a B-level player, guess what? The people that are running hard and fast and efficient and they see the long-term goal and they want that kind of success don't really want you as part of their team. They think you're holding them back. Welcome back, TPR Nation. This is Jamie Shalansky in an episode of Worlds to Conquer, and we are going through Surge. And we're going to be talking today about what does not work in Surge. What are ways that Surge absolutely goes off of the rails and is a complete failure? So if you're tuning in for the very first time, this is one of the fastest growing financial advisory podcasts out there in the place today. And that is because here we keep it absolutely real. We want to do three things at the Perfect RIA. We are in the pursuit of perfection. And here are the three things that we are focused on. We are focused on delivering massive value to clients, delivering massive value to clients. How much value is too much value? I've never come across that. I've never had somebody terminate services or not want to be a client because we provided so much value for the exchange of money that we were charging them. It was too much and they just had to go home. We call that the value sledgehammer. We provide so much value consistently. The second thing that we're super hyper focused on here at the Perfect RIA is that we want to make sure we're being really intentional with our time. We want you spending more time outside of the office with the people that you love and you say you are doing all of this for. We want to make sure that you are hyper effective and you're not caught up in playing office. Playing office means that you're idly running around your office. You're sitting there clicking on articles, reading things that are just absolutely irrelevant, and you're not GSDing, getting done so you can get out of the office and back to living the life that you want for yourself and your family wants with you. Third thing that we are really focused on at the Perfect RA is being profitable. We are highly profitable practices. We give you recipes, guidelines, things that you should be doing as a financial advisory office to know if you're profitable. Because for a nation full of a bunch of math nerds out there, most of you don't know if you're running a profitable practice until you settle up your last quarter taxes and you start looking at your profit and start justifying all the ways that you could have been more efficient, more profitable, and saying, oh, yeah, I'm not because I'm doing this. Well, we all know what the S in the S Corp stands for, right? Shenanigans. We're writing off all of these extra expenses, and that's hindering my profitability. I am a big, big believer that you run your practice so gosh darn clean that upon your deathbed, nobody had to clean up the mess you freaking created in your business because you were too busy justifying your excuses about why you're sloppy instead of actually running it like a professional organization. Every book of business should be ready to sell the very next day. Not because you are, but because you are not hiding anything in your closets and skeleton. If you're interested in knowing more about that, we go through it in depth in our membership. If you're an Invictus member, you already have access to it and you get the coaching with Matthew Jarvis and Micah Shalansky throughout the year. If you're a Backstage Pass member, you get the do-it-yourself version. And so you log into our member portal and you absolutely go through that. Those are our three focuses. Everything that we do at the Perfect RA is about that. But we are not like most coaching platforms out there because we have rules around giving you this advice. And the rules are, number one, no BS, no Bolshevik. If you haven't done it, if you haven't walked it, if you haven't lived it, shut your mouth and take a seat and listen until the time comes where you do have experience in that particular area. So when we talk about Surge, there are a lot of people that give us a lot of flack saying, oh my gosh, Surge doesn't work. That's so ridiculous. It's for the lazy advisor. It's so that you can take all this additional time off. Hell yes, it's to take additional time off because I was so hyper focused on providing value to clients during certain times that makes sense to them for in their lives to meet, that now I'm able to step away and being intentional about being around my family and being involved in my community. So Surge is about time blocking on steroids. It is hyper intentionality about meeting with clients and prospects when it makes the most sense in the client and prospect lives to meet with them. Not when you want to take holiday. This is when it makes the most sense. So I shared with you in our last episode about how we kind of go through surge and what the perfect surge dates are. The perfect surge dates, and we know they're perfect because we have refined and refined and refined them. Our financial advisory practice, Shalansky and Associates, is an RA up in Anchorage, Alaska. We have been in business. Our mom and dad, Mike is my baby brother, but my mom and dad, Floyd and Rosa Shalansky, started the practice back in 1981. Floyd went to some coaching with Dan Sullivan, learned about strategic focus and buffer days, came back and revolutionized the way that we used to meet with clients. He had always been sort of concentrating client appointments and tightening them up. He ran his advisory practice like an old time doctor's office, not the new one where the nurse is knocking on the door every 5 minutes and the doctor's telling you, sure, go to surgery with me. And I've talked to you for 3.5 minutes total about your problem. But where you didn't have big gaps in spaces and time. You weren't sitting around playing office or being idle. It used to be a big joke in our office when we moved to our current space back in the 90s. Before, we had been touring a whole bunch of different offices, and these different offices, the executive suite for my father, presidential suite, would have a door that led to the parking lot. And it was the number one reason we didn't rent that space, because if there was a gap in the calendar, my dad would disappear. Why? Because he is a master of getting done. And if he's not meeting with clients, if he's not delivering massive value, he's not going to be sitting in his office playing office. He's going to go get other things done. He's going to go talk to other centers of influence. He's going to go to the bank. He's going to be establishing relationships. He's going to be doing other things if he's not focused on meeting with clients. So back then, before we implemented the strategic buffer and focus days, we would always, have client meeting days, and then we would always make sure his schedule was really tightened up. And then we started kind of playing with it about like maybe no meetings on Friday, or maybe we concentrate Tuesday, Thursday, or what did this look like? Back then, we met with clients on a quarterly basis. Why? Because people got their statements quarterly. That's when they saw your fees coming out. Of course, we're going to meet with them at that time. But then we went on to developing and refining what Surge is now today. And we've played with this in several different manners. We have played with this in our office to figure out what would be the ultimate Surge dates for having a meeting. And this last, I think about 3 years now, we have been running what we consider the absolute perfect Surge schedule. And the reason that we think it's perfect is because when we implemented this calendar, our clients gave us such positive feedback. They absolutely love this schedule. We didn't get any complaints about not being available. We didn't get complaints about how hard it was to get in. And those were things that we were getting before when we were finessing our surge schedules. So when we did this over the last 3 years, we have not heard that. And then we also didn't have any head trash from our team members. So head trash is all the crap you tell yourself that are facts when they're just feelings inside of there. It's all the doubts, the insecurities, the thinking that you're an imposter, thinking that people are going to get mad at you, thinking that all these things are going to happen. If you're a financial advisor, you identify with this 100% because when you got your ticket punch, when you got all your license and designation, the first time you sat across from a prospect, you were probably sick to your stomach thinking, oh my God, why would you trust me with your life savings? I have no idea what you're going to ask me, and I don't know if I know the answer to what your questions are. That's referred to as imposter syndrome. Imposter syndrome thinking that we're not good enough, we're not smart enough, we're not capable enough, whatever it is to deliver that value. But our team members have that too. They have that too. And they spend more time talking to our clients than we do as financial advisors because there are more requests throughout the year that involve team members that don't necessarily involve the financial planner. Copy of statements. Where's my 1099? Can I schedule an appointment? I've got a change of address. Hey, I couldn't find this email. Could you follow up? Blah, blah, blah. I mean, our team members talk all of the time. One of the offerings that we make when people work with our firm is that you have unlimited availability to our firm, unlimited availability. Mr. and Mrs. Client, when you work with us, you have unlimited availability. I don't know if you've ever had to hire an attorney, but one of the things that drive me nuts is every time I want to reach out to an attorney, I know I'm going to get a $350 an hour bill, even if it's for 10 or 15 minutes of them reading my email or calling me back. So that makes me, as a consumer, less likely to tell them what's going on in my life because I know that I'm evaluating whether or not it's worth $350 or $1,000, $2,000, $10,000. I don't want you to ever have that experience when you work with our firm. If it involves money, I want to know about it. If you're making a big financial decision, just loop me in as a sounding board. Maybe you're on the right path and I can say, hey, this is great. Or maybe there's something that you haven't thought about that I want to make sure I highlight and bring to your attention. So if you don't mind, we're going to charge these flat fees and you have unlimited availability to our office for financial planning. And that goes over smashingly with people. I mean, they absolutely love that part of it. However, when I say that you have unlimited availability to our office, I did not say you have unlimited availability to me. I still have a schedule. I still have companies that need to be ran. And so what this does is that means I'm going to put a lot of that relationship back onto my relationship managers and my operation personnel. At Shalansky & Associates, we have 3 pods. We have financial advisors, we have relationship managers, and we have operations. Financial advisors give advice. They give advice. Relationship managers foster the relationship. They do not give advice. Operations people, they move money. That is their job. And so we all work sort of as this big wheel that keeps the whole thing moving along equally. So as we do this, our relationship managers years ago would be like, gosh, if I call somebody and they miss their spring appointment and I'm going to tell them that they can't come in and see you guys till October, I've got a lot of head trash around that. I need other appointment times to be able to get those people in because I don't know what I'm going to say to them and I don't know what I'm going to do. And so we listened to the relationship managers. We got feedback. We said, okay, great. Well, how many times has that actually happened? And then we'd have them start making a tally. And we'd start saying, okay, you know what? This is happening a little bit more frequently than we were thinking. We definitely need to adjust how we're doing our surge schedule. And so we did. We refined and refined and refined to now the perfect surge schedule. So the perfect surge schedule for us is that we want to meet all of March and half of April. And then we're going to meet all of October and half of November with clients. Why? In the spring, what is everyone concentrated on in March and April? Taxes. You want to hyperdrive the way that you get information from your clients? You ask for all the documents you need in financial planning during tax time. Why? Because every working person is in a hunting, gathering mode for their information. And they'll say to you, I don't know if you guys need a copy of this, but I got a 1099, or I've got a statement from an account I forgot I had over at Vanguard, over at Commonwealth, over at all these other things. This is a great triggering mechanism. This is a great way to really put your hands around all of that information that you've been asking the client for, but it hasn't been a priority for them to get to you. So in March and April, that is our big surge. Then we go into May, June, July, August, and September, and we have mini surges. Mini surges are 1 week out of the month, and this is a great place for anyone that may have missed their big surge appointment. Anyone that needs a follow-up, we're onboarding new clients or still meeting with prospects throughout the year. We go into October and November. Why is that an ideal time? What's happening in November and December? Holidays. Families are coming together. And as they come together, this is perfect time to review your beneficiary designations, go through the estate planning, make any modifications, go through long-term care. This is a wonderful time to do that. This is also a great time for you to plant the seed. And this is going to be a whole other podcast because I got to work with an advisor on this. Planting the seed of putting you in that client's life for multiple generations. Many of you financial advisors are working really great with the client, mom and dad, but you are neglecting to put yourself into their next lineage. You're neglecting to put your firm into their adult children's minds. And the way that we do this in October and November is we have family meetings. We go over estate planning with mom and dad and with the adult children. And so we're planting the seed that when the day comes that your adult children have questions, I want to make sure they call our firm. We're going to take care of them. You need to make sure that you're doing this now. The reason I do it is I want to plant myself, my firm, my company in their future. That is what we are doing. And that means our relationship isn't transactional. It's lifelong. I want a lifelong relationship here. And that's what we're doing in that October and November timeframe. As people come together and they gather as families, they start remembering, oh yeah, I do want to make changes in my estate planning because my daughter-in-law is pissing me off and there's no way in hell I'm leaving her part of my inheritance. If you don't think that normally happens, it does. And it's not just the daughter-in-laws. Son-in-laws get a bad rap too. If you are a son-in-law out there listening and wondering if your in-laws like you or not, I'll tell you a real quick guide to make sure they do. Have a job, have a consistent job, and be a provider and a protector of your family. 2, honor your wife. Honor your wife. If they see you honoring your wife and taking care of the kids, most in-laws are going to absolutely love you. But we've gotten away from thinking that a man's responsibility is not to protect or provide, and it is. It is the responsibility. That's not to say that women don't share that responsibility also, but we are uniquely designed to do certain things. And if you're a son-in-law and you're like, I don't know if they like me, do those 2 things. Become an expert of those 2 things, and you will begin to see how you can start strengthening that relationship with your in-laws. All right, we wrap up the year, and then guess what? Next year, we repeat this. And one of the things I am so good about is making sure August and September, we have finalized the next year's surge dates. Most of the time, I can do this a year in advance. We can do this now that we've got them perfected. We can do it indefinitely. However, there are some things that come up, and we always want to make sure that we're listening to our relationship managers. We want to make sure we're adjusting for conferences. I make no changes to our big surges, no changes. You want to talk about ways that things go wrong? Number one, change surge. So if you have your surge schedule set out, and it should be set out for the next year in advance, you cannot modify those dates. Not, oh, I'm going to slide it because of conference, because here's what's going to happen. Let's say that you're a solo practitioner out there and you got one person in your office that works with you, and you set up these surge things and say, okay, I'm going to commit to this, and you've committed to it. And then you booked foolishly your surge schedule to be September 23rd through the September 27th. And you forgot that Retirement Tax Services and the Perfect RA puts on their incredible tax summit every single year between September 25th, 26th, and 27th. And you go, oh no, I really wanted to attend that conference. I really wanted to register for that, and I didn't know the dates were right then. And so then you jump into your calendar and you say, oh, don't worry, relationship manager, I'm just going to move my surge dates because I really want to go to that conference. Okay. So you've moved your surge dates and those are done. And then your relationship manager comes to you in October and says, hey, my BFF is getting married and I really want to take these 3 days off during surge so that I can participate in their wedding. And then guess what? This is when the financial advisor's head trash sneaks in and you go, oh my gosh, how can I say no when I just modified surge for me? How can I change surge dates when I just did it? And so one of the things that if you want to avoid this big mistake that most financial advisors make is roll out next year's calendar. I am physically looking in my office right now at a wall calendar that's laminate and is divided out throughout the year. And so the very first thing I would do if this was August, September 2024 is I would already have 25 outlaid. And the very first things that go on my calendar, in fact, I just had somebody, was meeting with a business professional and he glanced over at my calendar and he said, oh, you don't have these dates on here. And I was like, no, the only dates I have on here so far are my surge dates. Because if anything is planned otherwise, it cannot be in conflict of my surge. So my surge dates go very first on the calendar. I owe it to myself, I owe it to my family, and I owe it to my team members and my clients to be this consistent with surge. So I'll block out those dates and I'll mark it on the calendar, literally say surge. And then I want to go through my mini surges. So my big surges, which again are March and April and October, November, are completely inflexible. I'm not making changes. I'm not modifying. Those are the dates. I don't care what conference is going on during that time. I'm not going to it. I'm not attending. I'm not participating because those are our big surges. And even if I wanted to go to something, but the rest of my team was in surge, how freaking rude is it for me to take off during surge when the rest of my team is grinding so hard? And I said, hey, this surge schedule is really important to you, but the rules don't apply to me. So, I mean, if you haven't read The Tipping Point by Malcolm Gladwell, you need to for this one big takeaway. What makes a law work? A law has to be reasonable and just, and it has to apply to everyone. It has to apply to everyone. So these surge rules about dates, they're inflexible around my big surges. You don't get to ask for time off. There's no time off during surge, period. Don't ask me. It's rude. Why can I say this so staunchly and go to bed every single night with my eyes closed? Because the rules apply to everyone. They're not rules I'm picking and choosing. They apply to everyone across the board. That's how it is. All right, so that's for my big surges. But what about my mini surges? My mini surges, I'm a little bit more flexible on. I'm not going to move the dates. Once they're established a year in advance, they are what they are. All financial advisors must adhere to those, no questions. But if a team member wants to take time off because Schillingsgate Associates is an enterprise office, so we have all those 3 different pods, that's fine. We can work around that during a mini surge because it is not the quantity of clients that we are seeing in that time. It's a lot less of a workload. So it's easily shared amongst team members. But once you set your surge dates in advance, in a year in advance, they have to become inflexible. And if you tell your team, if you're a solo practitioner and you got one employee, you're rolling out this calendar together and you're saying, hey, listen, I want to make sure that I'm being really intentional about this. These are the dates that I'm suggesting. Are they in conflict with anything else you might have going on? Is there anything else we've forgotten? And I want this mutual assurance between my assistant and I that these are good dates. And that's the right time for them to say, hey, listen, I know you want to attend that Retirement Tax Services Summit, and that's going to be, between September 25th, 26th, and 27th. I really wanted to take the 29th, 30th, and 1st off. Would you be back in the office? And is that okay for me to do? And then you guys can have that dialogue and that conversation when you do that. So having those surge dates, being able to say that. Now, once I have my surge dates out there, the second thing that I do is I put any family trips that I've committed myself to on the board. Why do I start with family trips? Because I work this hard to be present and intentional in my family's life. And so if I have my dates on there, because the work supports the avocations that we're going to go do otherwise, the vocation must support the avocation. So I've got those surge dates up. And then I talk to my spouse and say, hey, listen, these are my surge dates. What do you want to do? I'm a big fan that when surge wraps up, get out of Dodge. So if you're a financial advisor, my surge this year is going to wrap up and I'm taking off to Washington, D.C., and I'm taking off to London with my family. My son is a history major. He absolutely loves history. I cannot wait to take him to this nation's capital and go through the American history. And then it's been a really long time since I've been to London, and I am just jonesing to go. I cannot wait to go. One of my favorite things about London culture is, this is completely superfluous to this information we're discussing right now, but is so novel and neat. And should you ever receive an invitation from me, it will have this on it. And is the invitations to this day, at the very bottom right-hand corner, it says carriages and the time. So you'll get invited to, this party. The party starts at 7 p.m. and it'll say carriages at midnight. And so in the British culture, they've carried forward, and this is, of course, from horse and carriage times when your carriage should arrive to take you home, but it has an end date. I love this because my doormat says, please leave by 9. Like, I love this. Here's when you're invited and here's when you need to leave so that you don't overstay your welcome. So that's one little thing about the British culture I love. But I want to take him and my spouse to London. We've never, the three of us, been together. My spouse has been several times. I've been several times. We haven't been together as a family. And my mom and dad are coming. Floyd and Rosa Shalansky, we planned it together. I love them to travel with us. I know that if life goes as it should, I don't get an infinite amount of days with them. And the impact that they have on my son's life and my spouse's life and my life is so tremendous that I want to be real intentional about the time that we spend together. If you don't listen to Jordan B. Peterson, he's got a great podcast on this. And he says, if life goes as it should, my parents passed away at 85. They're 75 today. I've got 10 birthdays. I got 10 Christmases. I've got 10 more of whatever it is. And so I know it's not infinite and I want to have that impact. So I want to be intentional about saying, hey guys, as soon as we wrap up with Surge, let's blow out of here. Do you guys want to go do X, Y, and Z? Now, why is it not the day Surge wraps up? Because inevitably, I'm still in high efficient work mode and I still am following up on things that want to get done. And I still have a lot of questions from my team member 1 to 3 days afterwards. Now, I don't want to underscore the importance of this. When we go through Surge, and Michael Kitts has asked my brother, Micah Shalansky, this one time. He said, because Micah is appointments, he would start off 4 appointments, then went to 5, then 7, then 9, and now we could do between 9 and 11 appointments a day. Now, you have to be really deliberate and intentional about the value you're providing so that it doesn't seem like you're just a burn and churn kind of company when you have that. And it also takes a certain level of stamina. You don't start running a marathon if you've never taken a lap around a track. So when Kitts was asking Micah about that, he said, my God, you must be absolutely exhausted by the end of the day. Like you can't even talk. And it's actually for us financial advisors kind of the opposite. And I bet you agree with me too. Like when you're sitting there and you're meeting with clients and you're going back to back, you're so pumped up to be of service. You're delivering so much value. You are changing multi-generational lives. You are creating so much influence and changing the trajectory of somebody's path that you are just high off of excitement of working with people because we have the greatest profession in the world. We get to impact somebody's life and help them make really great financial decisions. That is a phenomenal power to have. I mean, it always gets to be the client's choice, but when you get to provide that much value and security and peace of mind and a sounding board, hell, I just went through this with a client. Her husband passed away and, Floyd was out of town. So she said, hey, I know Floyd's out of town. Can you kind of help me out here? And it wasn't about investment advice or anything like that, but she had been in the position where her husband passed away. The niece had been the primary caregiver for the husband for several years, and she had been compensated for that. Well, upon his pass, generously compensated for that as her job. And then when he passed, she came back to the aunt and said, hey, this is a complete loss of income for me. This is, really tragic. This put me in a bad position. Now, the aunt, the client, had already planned on providing some type of monetary inheritance, if you will, to the niece to say thank you very much for all the hard work that you did and, taking on this grueling task. But then the niece saw that amount, didn't say thank you, and kept asking for more and more and more and more. And so the client is like, I don't know what to do here. I'm beside myself and I'm getting ready to spread ashes. I don't want this to taint the relationship. I'm very appreciative. I'm very grateful. We've always had a good relationship, but now it's starting to this is the cloud. And I said, super easy, Mrs. Client. Make me the bad guy. Make me the bad guy. And I say no. I'll call her up and say no. And I'll just tell her that the estate does not have an indefinite amount of money to allocate towards this expense. Here's the maximum that you can provide. Just hearing that she wasn't alone in her corner. And I don't give a gosh darn, make me the big bad financial advisor. I don't care, And so I gave her that peace of mind of saying, I will take this away. And then you have somebody to put between the two of you that gets to buffer. And not only did it worked so beautifully that she just sat down and wept and said, this is such a relief. You have no idea what you've done to me, because we give people this peace of mind. This is the greatest profession in the world. This is the greatest profession in the world that has massive impact in somebody's life. We get to help them through those troubled times and problem solve in really unconventional ways that they just feel they've cut somebody in their corner. And by God, in this lifetime, don't we want somebody in our corner? Don't we want somebody help advocating for us? And that is what we get to do as financial advisors. So it is impactful. It is powerful. The work we do is so gosh darn important. So no, we are not fatigued coming out of surge. However, you will be if you break these two rules. So these two things I want to tell you right now. Overcommitments during surge. Overcommitments. So surge is not just a schedule you have to follow as your financial advisor. You got to get your whole gosh darn family on board. We did a whole episode. We'll link it in the show notes down below. But we will, after you give us 5 stars as a rating, you can go check out that episode. And don't forget, guys, we live in an algorithm world. If you don't 5-star these episodes and spread this type of content, we can't reach other financial advisors who gosh darn well, are having the same struggles, the same doubts, and the insecurities. And we need to have these frank and honest conversations because nobody else is. Everybody else is washing down their content with PC garbage and not talking about the real life topics that impact us as financial advisors and as team members. And if your team members aren't listening to these episodes, what are they doing with their lives? Seriously, you need to have them tune in and start listening to this because this content is for them too. I'll tell you what, who is the top performers on my team? Now, I have A-level only team members, the ones that are digesting this content, writing it down and going, oh, yep, absolutely. Or how I'm going to trigger this or oh, I'm going to do that. They're listening to this content that we produce, even though they're surrounded by us all of the time, because they believe it too. And they're a part of this. They're a part of this dialogue. They're a part of this conversation. And they are willing to go full in by investing and listening to this. So if you haven't shared this with your team member, what are you doing with your life? Come on. All right. So now we're going into surge and I need to make sure my whole team is on board. What does that look like? That means, and you know who the hardest person this was for? This was the hardest. You cannot tell me that you can't get your family on board with surge because I had to fight somebody that I know every single time I will lose. And I am not a loser, especially when it comes to fight. But my goodness, telling my mom she could not plan parties in surge has been the hardest task I have ever taken on in my entire life because my mom is prom queen with her BFF of their social group. And these boomers are so gosh darn active. I can't even keep, I read their itinerary for the weekend and I'm exhausted. In fact, as I record this, my mom is off with her BFF and my dad, and they're trekking around Cape Town in South Africa. I mean, it's just insane, just incredible woman. She never slows down. She's always open for adventure and she loves to do social things. And that means she has a really hard time during her spring and fall surge, not committing to more parties, more events, more networking, more things like that. And they might be little things that you don't think, like dinner, going to dinner with friends. I'm sorry, but when you're on all day long, you need to have recovery time. You need to be off. On the weekends, that means you need to do things that are centered around recovery. So if you live in a place that's not covered in snow in March and April, then you might consider in March and April, you got to have somebody come yard maintenance. You need to not be the person responsible for those things. You need to give your spouse a handyman contact that says, hey, if you need something while I'm in surge, you got to have somebody else do it. And you have to delegate and relinquish those things because if you don't recover, you won't make it through surge. If you are not as dedicated and consistent with your recovery as you are with your discipline and grind, you will not make it. You will fizz out. You will burn out. You will not be a high performer all the way to the end. All right, now we're talking about the end. Here's another way surge goes wrong. I said after my surge wraps up, I stick around for about 3 days. Those are not my buffer appointment days, because what will happen if a financial advisor has appointment openings on their calendar for 3 days? They will fill them with appointments. If you cannot do it, we will. We will make up appointments to fill those slots. So instead, I block these out as buffer days. Buffer days means I am doing nothing but finishing the work I told my clients I said I was going to do, that maybe I didn't have time to do in between meetings. And then I'm also available for my team. I'm available for any team questions that come up if they need me. Now, what happens on that 4th day? That 4th day, I'm getting out of town. Why? I'm totally turning my phone off. I'm removing myself a little bit from availability, and we're going back to our regular communication channels and our policies inside the office. And the reason is because I need to now start coming down off of the highest surge. And when you go through surge, you have all of these ideas and thoughts and things that you want to do, and you're getting really, really amped up to do that work. And so when I come out, I need to make sure that I'm stepping away. I've got room to decompress. And the reason I also leave those buffer days is because if I end surge and immediately start being full-time around my family cannot handle it. They do not like it. They do not like it when I'm in surge mode. I have been called many things, drill sergeant, or I'm not your employee, or all of these different things, because when you are in hyper efficient mode and you are just spouting off these things, who you are as a business owner is not who you get to be as a spouse. You have to completely change your dialogue. And that doesn't happen if I'm running on that high of surge, if I'm in my hyper efficient mode. And if I'm still in hyper efficient mode, if I'm being totally radically candor with you, I'm annoyed. I'm annoyed to be brought down to a different speed. I'm annoyed to be brought down to something that seems very insignificant when I just had really big problems that I just tackled. And so I need to give myself space, and I owe my family the respect of having that time to sort of come down to a soft landing. And then by changing the atmosphere of getting out of town, and maybe this is a staycation, maybe you're just going somewhere camping, or maybe you're getting out of town. Like I said, I'm going to take my family to Washington and then over to London. Now we're changing our rhythm. Now we're changing our activity, and I can focus on those things instead of focus on the hyper efficiency of surge. So that is big, big, big rules around how surge can go wrong for you if you're not implementing that exact same strategy. Now, I take those 3 buffer days because I know I need to come down from the high, but maybe you don't. I don't know how driven you are. That's up to you. Another reason I take those buffer days is I need to stop creating work for team members. In fact, one of the organizations that I work in as an executive, I had no idea about this because I don't realize it. But when I walk in, a lot of the employees, because we have over 100 employees, start to scramble. And we were going to the board reading, and I said, I can't find this person. And they said, they're probably hiding from you. And I said, what? What is it? What are you talking about? And they said, you intimidate a lot of people when you come in here because you're really hyper efficient, and you also create a lot of work. And I do. I walk into a room and I create a lot of work. I'm always looking for what's next and what to improve and what can we do differently. And so when I'm around my team, I'm instantly like, great, you go do this, you go do this, you go do this. And I'm hijacking their time. And so I've had to teach myself manners and ways and to communicate with my team that don't allow for them to get derailed. Right? Because my priority is always going to be what they consider a high priority. So they're going to drop everything and start working on what I gave them instead of finishing the work they already had to do long before whatever idea popped into my head that I thought was so brilliant or so genius. And so I need to step away from the office, and I need to make sure my team has the space to get the things done that they need to get done. Now, one of the things that I will do in those buffer days is that we will have our after surge. So this is my final tip that I'm going to give you. If you are wondering how surge can go wrong and the ways that it fails, and the way that it fails is you don't do an after action report. My military members, after action reports, you already know what they are. But if you're not from a military background, here's what they are. After something happens, you go into a combat or a mission, you have an after action report. What went wrong? What went well? What do you need to do differently next time? What were you prepared for? What were you unprepared for? And so we go through this. During surge, we change nothing. I don't change the dates. We don't change the processes. We don't change any way that we are doing anything during surge. That's one of our hard rules. No changes during surge. It has a price tag attached to it. If you change something during surge, as the financial advisor, it is a $10,000 fine. Our team members can respectfully push back on you. And they can say, Mr. Financial Advisor, Mrs. Financial Advisor, I am happy to do what you've asked me to do. That is a break in our processes. It will cost $10,000. Would you like me to still proceed forward? And then it becomes the choice. It becomes the choice of the financial advisor whether or not you're going to break that process and if it is worth doing it. And so then that allows us, especially as driven people, to stop back and go, oh, yeah, never mind. It's not worth that. Don't do that. Nope, stick with the process. So we need that check too. And our team member needs a respectful way to give it back to us to say, hey, I'm happy to do that. That's going to break the process. Would you like me to continue forward? We always lead with the yes. Lead with the yes. Hard rule of working with us. The answer is always yes. But then you got to kind of respectfully push back and say, it will cost you this. Can you drop everything right now, Amanda, and do this? Yes, I'm happy to. If I do that, I'm going to stop following up with CPAs on taxes for the rest of the day. Would you like me to do that? No, I don't. Continue on with that task. Or actually, yeah, I don't care if you follow up with CPAs. I need this done first. And so we need that filter. We need respectful dialogues that allow us candidly to speak to each other in an office environment. Oh, and by the way, this is why your team should be listening to this podcast. Because if you aren't already having these frank conversations, I'm telling you right now, team members around the nation, let's hear the silent clap. Come on, real light clap. They're wanting you to have this conversation with you. They are wanting to ask. One of the biggest things when we work with team members and we do breakout sessions, they say, my financial advisor isn't doing X. How do I respectfully push back? When do I stop nagging them? When do I start doing this, and this? They need to have that dialogue of how to talk to you to get you back focused because you are your greatest enemy. I am mine. And Matt is Matt's greatest enemy. Mike is Micah's greatest enemy. We all know and identify that. And we have to create a culture of really great people around us that know how to respectfully do it. Now, if you can't respectfully do it, if you're doing it rude or you're giving attitude, you get verbally checked by me. Then you might get written checked, and then you get no more checks, and you can go find a different job because we live in a respectful environment. I'm real big on the Ritz-Carlton rules, and then we are ladies and gentlemen serving ladies and gentlemen. And that means we have to have a respectful dialogue, and your team member wants this vocabulary. They want it desperately from you to know how to do this. All right, we've talked a lot about Surge, and I started off telling you that I have no B-level team members on my team. These are all A team members. Why? Because A team wants to be around other A team players. They do. If you took a LeBron, you brought him to a junior high, he might do it for fun, but he doesn't want to be around those people. He wants other people of the same caliber. They want to run with people of the same discipline, same drive. There are organizations where B-level work is exactly what that person should be doing. But if it's yours, you got to ask yourself, are you a B-level firm? Can you charge what you charge in good conscience and offer really crappy service? Because that is what B-level work does. B-level work does table stakes. And I don't want people doing table stakes. I want people going above and beyond. I want them to hear and see and think and feel about the expressed and the unexpressed interests of our clients. I want them to be 5 steps ahead of where we need to go. I want them planting themselves and our firm in the organization, in the client's life for the rest of the client's life and then their children's. That is how we at Shalansky & Associates are going to go change the world. TPR Nation, this is Jamie Shalansky in an episode of Worlds to Conquer. Go find people who share your values. Change the world.
Hold on before we go. Something that you need to know. This isn't tax, legal, or investment advice. That isn't our intent. Information designed to change lives. Financial planning can make you thrive. Start today, don't think twice. Be a better husband, father, mother, and wife. The perfect RIA, the perfect